Hi, I'm Dr. Alix Dietzel, and today I want to talk about climate justice and what it looks like. I am an academic who works at the University of Bristol and also sits on the Bristol Advisory Committee for Climate Change. My work is all about climate justice, and I focus on questions around human rights, how people will be affected by climate change, which inequalities it might create or make worse, and how we make fair decisions. To me, climate change is very obviously an issue of justice because it affects those who have contributed least to the problem. There are three broad groups of people who have done very little to contribute to climate change. First of all, those living in the global south, who have very low emissions historically and currently, but will be hit hardest and first by climate effects due to their unlucky geography and place where they live. Second, it's those less well off in our societies, whether in the global north and south, who have really low emissions due to their consumption patterns, but who also have really low adaptive capacity to climate change because, for example, they can't easily move house, move away from affected regions, protect themselves from extreme weather, and adapt to climate change as easily as those who are wealthy. And then finally, future generations who have done nothing to contribute to the climate change problem, but will be born into a world where potentially the problem is so severe it cannot be reversed. Distributing responsibility in such a complex situation really requires us to reflect on what is fair, what is just, who should do the most, why they must do more than others, and solving those kinds of questions and coming together at the global level to discuss them really means coming to grips with issues of climate justice. People who could affect climate change include big players like states, but also non-state actors like corporations, rich individuals, or even non-governmental organizations and social movements, protest movements, and of course cities like the city of Bristol. And Bristol is actually a really great place to live because it's such an ambitious city in terms of its climate change plans under the One City strategy. However, even here in such an ambitious city, we have to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind as we fight climate change and get ready to adapt to its effects. This is referred to as a just transition, something the city has promised to pursue in its climate change plans. My work right now is focusing on the city of Bristol and how we can make fair decisions on climate change by including voices from all sectors of society. This is something that climate change movements have historically struggled with. At the moment, my research shows that there are some voices being excluded, primarily the voices of women, people of color, young people, people with disabilities, and those from working class backgrounds. And this is really problematic because those people will be most affected by the climate change problem, and excluding their voices from decision-making could lead us to taking unfair decisions around climate change and not ensuring a just transition in Bristol.
We protest because there's something about the world around us that we do not agree with, something that makes us want to stand up, makes us want to expose ourselves and say, this is not how I want to live. This is not how I want the world to be. Climate protest has a semblance, a similarity with the protests of the past, the protests we continue to enact now. Civil rights, gender rights, gay rights, the rights of minorities. However, it is those people that are on the edge, those people whose lives are most affected by the increasing and rapid changes to our environment, to the way we produce, the way we do industry. It is those people that feel the most voiceless when it comes to climate protest. And for this reason, so many of us feel like climate protest belongs to others, that maybe it is not our cause. The reality of it is that those people on the edge are those most affected. They're those whose lives will shift the fastest. And in whatever way we can, it is our duty, not only to ourselves, but to our children and our children's children, to make a stand, to see that the risks that we take in going to the streets, in challenging our governments, in challenging industry, that those risks, though they may not bear fruit now, are in some way relevant and important if we are to change and shift the tide towards a better future, a better connection with our environment and the planet at large.
I'd like to tell you the story of a disabled girl you might know. A few years ago, she was so worried about climate change that she walked out of school and sat in front of Parliament. Within a year, millions of students had joined her, and she'd been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, because that girl is Greta Thunberg. I started with this story because climate justice doesn't just try to save people who are hurt most by climate change, but gives them the platform so that they can be the climate leaders that they have the insight to be. Disabled people need quick action on climate change. We are twice as likely to die because of disasters than any other group, and so are the most at risk of flooding, storms and wildfires that are getting more dangerous because of climate change. Yet when climate change action is planned without including our voices, then we are often hurt by that too. For example, the UK has banned plastic straws. These straws are a tiny part of ocean waste, but are important for disabled people who need them not to choke when drinking. So while the seas continue to choke in plastic, many disabled people have yet another barrier to face. Climate justice for disabled people means giving us a seat at the table where decisions are made and making that table accessible. In Bristol, this has started to happen. At the Bristol Disability Equality Forum, we have brought people together to make the world's first community climate action plan by and for disabled people. It lists simple and achievable ways of making Bristol's climate action accessible. Now other cities must do the same.
Climate justice looks like us only getting behind solutions that don't create further harm or crises here or anywhere. And that looks like decisions being made by people who will be most affected by the outcome, as well as resources being put directly into the hands of those who should benefit from them, not via companies that are just looking for more profits. A reality in which the people who breathe the air in Avonmouth get to decide what industries are based there, while oil workers in Azerbaijan get financially supported as they transition from fossil fuels to renewables. It means paying our climate debts from those countries and companies that profited through colonialism and industrialisation, that made money while causing climate change. Climate justice looks like no one freezing in their home in Conham, nor in makeshift tents at the Calais border. It looks like people not being forced to leave their homes through climate change or as a result of poverty as a legacy of colonialism. And until then, it looks like safety, dignity and a warm welcome for those who've already been displaced. As my friend Leo Cerda says, he's a Quechua indigenous activist from Ecuador. He says, our solutions have to be intersectional. There's no climate justice without racial justice, no racial justice without climate justice. But I'm not talking about acting from a place of guilt, but more from a place of a deep desire and longing for a good life. A good life for people in Hartcliffe and Haiti, for people in Patchway and Pakistan, in Lawrence Hill and Liberia. Acting from the knowledge that all human and other than human life is interconnected and interdependent, and we just have this one home we share, this earth, our Pachamama. If we can begin to imagine a future where climate justice prevails, we can make that happen.